Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to Themeless Thursday here on Before Coffee. We're going to talk about everything today, and this is the only news show that you should watch for the real news that's going on. So let's go ahead and get into our headlines with further ado. Today on Before Coffee. Millions of drug ads on Telegram, and the platform leaves them untouched.
Senator Lindsey Graham throws defendant Jay Trump under the bus.
Just 2 northern white rhinos remain. The species' first IVF pregnancy could save them from extinction.
And speaking of extinct species, there was something known as a hell chicken.
UK museums to loan looted artifacts to Ghana. Boy, thanks.
Those stories and more, which is National Opposite Day, January 25th, 2024 on Before Coffee.
All right. First news story is from NOS, the Dutch news agency. I think state news agency, who's reporting on millions of drug ads on Telegram. That's right, you can get all the drugs you need on Telegram. Drug criminals can operate undisturbed on the chat app Telegram. In public chat groups with thousands of members, millions of messages are posted in which soft drugs, hard drugs, and heavy drugs are offered for sale. Accounts and groups are sometimes active for years. The drugs can be found with a simple search term, according to an analysis by the NOS using an AI model. The quantities offered vary from a few grams to many kilos. Last year alone, 2.5 million messages were posted offering drugs. NOS saw the enormous amount of drug advertisements gives the impression that Telegram hardly intervenes. This is also stated by the police, who say they receive little cooperation from the company. Telegram tells NOS that this does indeed occur. Since our inception, we have moderated harmful messages, including the sale of narcotics, a company spokesperson said. The Telegram says it responds to users' complaints and also does its own proactive monitoring. The police say they didn't notice that. The 2.5 million drug advertisements from 2023 were placed in 21 different groups. These groups focus on the sale of drugs and other illegal items such as heavy fireworks and supplies for internet scams. Hard drugs such as cocaine and ecstasy are the most popular by design. But designer drugs such as the now banned 3-MMC are now also widely available. In groups studied, the same advertisements are often repeated, sometimes even thousands of times. In total, the NOS found almost 55,000 unique drug advertisements were placed in 2023. The providers are active throughout the Netherlands, the Schiermonnikoog, and the north of North Holland, in the Zeeuws-Vlaanderen. They list in detail which places they deliver to, probably to be easy to find when users enter their place of residence in the Telegram search function. Oh boy, I'm going to Schiermonnikoog, so I better get some ecstasy on the trip up. I don't know. Crazy raves going on the islands there. It is impossible to say whether all providers, 9,900 in total, actually sell drugs. Scammers are also active on Telegram who take money from the customers without ever delivering anything. The 13 providers who wanted to talk to NOS stated that they do indeed sell drugs. For them, Telegram is primarily an advertising channel and an accessible way to acquire new customers. After the first contact, some sellers switch to other and often more secure chat applications such as WhatsApp, Signal, or Wicker. Some providers specialize in certain types of drugs. For example, they only have weed, cocaine, or designer drugs. There are also numerous advertisers who offer a complete range, from ecstasy to coke, ketamine, and heavy painkillers. They often promise to put the customer first. Drugs may be tested first, and anyone who is satisfied will get their money back, according to many advertisements. They also promise discreet delivery people who are often also friendly and correct. Although most providers sell user quantities, the NOS found more than 800 accounts that offer large quantities. Yeah, you gotta have all that cocaine for that office party next week. They offer weed per kilo and ecstasy per 1,000 pieces. According to cybercrime expert Wolf van Wegberg of TU Delft, trading on the dark web has largely moved to Telegram. This stat started around 2020 when a number of major dark web marketplaces were taken offline and flash delivery companies like Gorillas and Flink emerged, says Van Wegberg. The drug buyers now also expect that convenience. Also expect that convenience. On the dark web, it could take a while before you receive your order of ecstasy pills by post. On Telegram, you can find a dealer nearby and will deliver them quickly, he said. Most common drugs offered on Telegram, according to this graph, I think this is probably only in the Netherlands, but is cocaine. 51% of all ads are cocaine. 48% are MDMA. 45% are ketamine. 42% are designer drugs. And then under 20% is speed, LSD, hashish, wheat, GHB, and crystal meth. Only 6% selling crystal meth. Hey, got a market for you. It's probably really hard to
is it a drop in the market
make
or
crystal meth. It's probably not. It's probably the supply and not the demand. However, there are more risks for users. There are more scams on Telegram and less certainty that you'll get what you buy, says Van Wegberg. Dark web marketplace allows users to leave reviews. Those who sold bad stuff or did not deliver no longer attract customers. None of that is there on Telegram. Police also see the lively trade on Telegram, but are not sure whether it's really as extensive as enormous number of advertisements suggest. Yeah, like, does every advertisement, if there's 9,000 advertisements, does that mean there's 9 million people buying drugs? You know, what is the actual customer base here?
That's how it works.
There are many ghost ads posted. Sorry?
Some people buy more than one type of drug, so they get counted twice.
Yeah, exactly.
I would think.
According to the police, the fact that the drug sellers advertise there en masse does not mean that there's no enforcement whatsoever. Just because you don't see us doesn't mean we're not there, says Nan van Covering of the police's high-tech crime team. But with such a large supply, we of course have to make choices. Police say they mainly focus on major players who are active on multiple platforms at the same time. Priority is also given to arms trade, for example. What doesn't help the police is that the Telegram isn't cooperating. The platform usually ignores requests to provide information about suspicious users. They also do not clean up their platform of their own accord. Van de Covering notes Telegram has no self-cleaning ability. Yet the Dutch government takes no action against Telegram. Germany does. The company was fined there and promised to cooperate better from now on. Telegram also has a deal with stricter European rules. Research by the NOS previously showed that Telegram hardly takes action against so-called exhibition groups, in which intimate images of women and their contact details are shared. There are also active far-right groups. Despite Telegram's lack of cooperation, the police say they are not powerless. Occasionally, dealers are arrested after undercover actions. Last year, agents took over a drug channel for the first time, after which all members received a warning. Several sellers tell NOS that they are very wary of possible undercover agents. Although one of them thinks it wouldn't be too bad. As long as you don't sell weapons or women, they will leave you alone. I mean, that is kind of true of the Dutch. The Dutch do not have a war on drugs. The Dutch have it's your life, dude. If you want to do drugs, here's a drug test kit. Make sure you're actually getting the drug you want. And have fun. I don't care. If you want to get addicted to heroin, that's your problem. I mean, they're a little harsher on harder drugs, but like I said, as you can see here, they don't really, they're just trying to make sure people are safe and not taking, heroin laced with whatever was happening. Can't think of the drug right now. It starts with an F.
Fentanyl?
Yeah, fentanyl. They're just making sure people are taking safe, pure drugs, I guess, which I guess you can't complain about that. But there you go. There's your news on the drug scene in the Netherlands. That is not why I wanted to live here. I don't do drugs, but it's that.
But you don't want people killing you for money to buy drugs. Either,
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Your story.
Yeah. And famously, what would you do if you were you needed insulin to live? And it was really expensive, and you could only get it on the street. That's the problem heroin users find.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, they need to live. They cannot produce dopamine on their own. Anyway, that's my little lecture. Oh, and a little news side I'm going to start with. I can't find a story that doesn't put me behind a pay window or turn it into an editorial. Jon Stewart is returning to The Daily Show, but just on Mondays. But that's good news because mean, he went the whole Trump presidency without being on television. You can imagine that.
He probably would have gotten a heart attack live on air if he was there.
So he's coming. They won't. Yeah, he's not the permanent host, but just a Monday host. Kind of what Rachel Maddow was doing on Monday.
Really?
On MSNBC. She used to have the most popular news show in the country. Then she got so popular, I'm going to do a podcast and write books. So they gave her just Monday and gave her show to somebody else on the rest of her week. And kind of a crappy arrangement. But this is comedy, right? I don't know why he's doing it just Monday, but that's what he's doing. Well,
Maybe he just doesn't want to get stressed out. Kind of a side story. So
I was gonna ask you about that earlier if you'd heard it, but I forgot about it while I was sleeping. Anyway, in other political news, here's a story that Jon Stewart's probably making fun of as soon as he gets back. Lindsey Graham, this is from the New Republic. A story by Tori Otten. A new book describes the South Carolina senator threw the former president under the bus. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham completely threw Donald Trump under the bus when the senator testified before the grand jury in Georgia's election interference case, a new book reveals. Graham, who has spent most of the last half-decade as a steadfast Trump loyalist, had been summoned to testify before a grand jury over a phone call he made to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. After fighting the subpoena for months, Graham finally appeared to testify and flipped immediately, according to the new book by investigative reporters Michael Isikoff and Daniel Cademan. After fighting a 4-month legal battle all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court to block his grand jury subpoena and losing, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham turned on a dime and threw Trump under the bus. So I keep using the same metaphor. If you don't know what that means, I don't know. I guess we could just describe it. Isikoff and Cademan also wrote in their book, Find Me the Votes, a hard-charging Georgia prosecutor, a rogue president, and the plot to steal an American election. Oh, that's a long title. Citing anonymous sources. According to the testimony, which the authors confirmed, Graham said that if you told Trump that Martians came and stole the elections, he would probably believe you. Outside the pages of Isikoff and Cademan's book, Graham has positioned himself as one of the president's most... He's not the president. Oh my Lord. These people that write these articles. Okay. He's not the president, folks. Stop calling him that. Call him former president.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to say. Or his full name.
Outside... God, these lazy writers. Outside the pages of Isikoff and Cademan's book, Graham has... Tori Otten, he's not the president. You wrote this article. Go make a correction. Jesus. Graham has positioned himself as one of defendant J. Trump's most ardent defenders. Last month, he took a harsh stance against the effort among a handful of secretaries of state to kick Trump off their presidential ballots via the language of Article 3 in the 14th Amendment. And as recently as 3 weeks ago, Graham defended the former. Oh, so now he's former. You couldn't do that earlier in the paragraph. Actions on January 6, 21, telling Face the Nation that Trump's claim of presidential immunity was valid. Complete nonsense. Now, if you're doing your job as a president, Graham said his defense substantially at odds with his account documented in Isikoff and Cademan's book. And January 6th, he was still president trying to find out if the election, was on up and up. And I think his immunity claim, I don't know how it will bear out. But I think it's a legitimate claim. No, it's not a legitimate claim. If he has immunity, it means you can just hire people to kill his enemies and get off scot-free. He doesn't have immunity. It's complete horse shit. Holy crap. Why was Nixon pardoned? He was immune. Why would he need a pardon?
Yeah.
Come on, folks. U.S. History 101 here, and we're still arguing about this crap. In a hilarious side note, Graham also hinted that Trump cheated at golf, a sharp contrast to comments he made a few years earlier. In 2017, a more deferential Graham insisted that Trump shot a 73 in windy and wet conditions, which everybody knew was bullshit. After his grand jury testimony, Isikoff and Cademan wrote, Graham bumped into Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, and who led the investigation into Trump and ultimately indicted the former president. Graham actually thanked Willis for letting him share his side of the story. That was so cathartic, he said. I feel so much better. Graham then hugged Willis, who seemed unperturbed by the encounter, an eyewitness told Isikoff and Clayman. The backstory will live in infamy. Graham called Raffensperger on Trump's behalf soon after the 2020 election, after it became clear that Joe Biden was set to take the White House. According to Raffensperger, Graham asked whether the secretary had the power to throw out all mail-in ballots from certain counties. Yeah, okay. No, he doesn't. What the hell?
Like, what a question to even ask.
I think there's a way you can cheat for us to win. Let's see if we can do this. Raffensperger told the Washington Post he felt that Graham was asking him to illegally discount ballot ballots. This phone call occurred a week before Trump's own infamous phone call to Raffensperger, during which he begged the secretary to find the exact number of votes he needed to flip Georgia to Trump. Raffensperger held firm in both cases. Graham was so involved in the scheme that the special grand jury actually recommended he be indicted for the actions. The special grand jury's full report was released in September, and it revealed that Graham and former Georgia Senators Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue all narrowly escaped charges for their role in trying to overturn the 2020 election.
I can't believe so many people are like, yeah, this makes sense. Let's do this.
Right. So I think they should have. Fani should have prosecuted all of them. She decided not to.
I agree. Like, you shouldn't let a single politician ever think of doing this ever again.
But Lindsey Graham turned state's evidence on him, at least.
Yeah.
He felt threatened enough. Donald Trump's double-digit win on Tuesday was also not that much of a great win. There's a large percent, and again, don't trust polls, but the one polls you can trust, believe it or not, the exit polls, because they're actually people as they leave.
Yeah.
Voting, right?
Some people do
and
lie, questions but
people lie to pollsters. You can't do nothing about that, whether it's in person or on the phone. But in person, you at least know they voted. And you can actually record their name. Get their number to call them and shit. If they want to, give it to you. They don't have to, right?
Yeah.
But they're probably going to be more accurate than anything you do on a telephone, especially when you're only calling people that have landlines. So you're talking about 35% of the country. There's 55% of the Republican Party is voting for Trump, right? There is nobody else running. It's Trump and Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley is just alternative at this point. It's Donald Trump, an alternative, and still 45% prefer the alternative, right? And this guy's already been president. He should be just push him on through. No, 45% want somebody else. You should be worried. That means I think something like 20 to 25% of the Republican voters in the primary say they will never vote for Trump. And even more than that say that if he's convicted.
Yeah.
So he's got a problem. On the other hand, Joe Biden, who wasn't even on the ballot. Biden wins New Hampshire primary through a write-in effort after declining the campaign there. Not only did he was not on the ballot, he was not on the campaign there, didn't buy any ad time. He doesn't even want the votes. They're not even going to be counted in the convention. They said, New Hampshire, don't even hold the primary. You're going to have to wait till South Carolina. Anyway, this is from AP. Will Weissert, former President Donald Trump easily won New Hampshire's primary on Tuesday, seizing command of the race for the Republican nomination against Joe Biden. But President Joe Biden won Tuesday's New Hampshire largely symbolic Democratic primary, prevailing in an unusual write-in effort after he refused to campaign or appear in the state ballot. Biden easily bested two long-shot challengers, Minnesota Rep. Dean Phillips and self-help author Marianne Williamson, who were on the ballot, doing, along with a host of little-known names. His victory in a race was not formally contested. A race he was not formally contested essentially cements the president's grip on the Democratic nomination for a second term. The New Hampshire race will likely not count towards amassing delegates for the presidential nomination after Democrats in the state bucked a Biden champion revamp of the primary calendar that placed South Carolina at the fore of the Democratic race for the White House. South championed the changing Democratic Party rules to put South Carolina first on February 3rd, arguing that Black Democrats, the party's most reliable base of support, and other voters of color needed to play a larger, earlier role in the primary, which is very true. But South Carolina, let's face it, that's not going to be a big Democratic stronghold either. But at least it's more representative of the Democratic Party than New Hampshire, you know. New Hampshire's black population, very small, and obviously South Carolina, astronomically higher, I would think. So there's your news. The news media wants you to think Donald Trump's just stomping all over the competition, when in reality, there never really was any competition other than not Trump.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
they refused to put because they gotta fight the cultists, and one the party's just gotta either get rid of all the cultists.
Yeah.
I don't know, somehow.
That's how a lot of young people right now mostly feel like. Just shrug. There's no choice.
Yeah. It's like, it doesn't bode well for the country if one party is just putting up stiffs.
Yeah.
Because everybody's afraid to run, maybe all I got is stiffs anymore. It looks that way, but anyway, I sent you a video.
Okay.
Okay, you can use as much of it as you want. Actually, I haven't sent it to you yet, but I will in a minute. And it relates to Jon Stewart. So, okay.
All right.
You might enjoy it. Okay, you can.
For my next story, let's talk about rhinos. That's right. The last two northern rhinos are the only living survivors, at least that they can find. So they're going to try to IVF them so that they can save them from extinction, because I guess they're not interested in each other. They're just not interested in each other, so they're just forcing it to happen, I guess. The first successful embryo transfer into a southern white rhino paves way by using techniques to save rare northern cousin. Okay, so they're putting a white rhino into a southern one into a northern one and hoping that creates something, I guess? I have no idea. Well, let's read about the science. This is from Patrick Greenfield on The Guardian. The critically endangered northern white rhino could be saved from the brink of extinction after scientists performed the first successful embryo transfer in a white rhino. After the last male northern rhino, Sudan, died in 2018, the disappearance of the species looked imminent. Just two infertile females, northern white rhinos, Fatu and Najin, remain. They are under 24-hour armed protection at a conservation reservation in Kenya. But a new scientific advancement means that the mother and daughter may not be last of their kind. An international team of researchers from BioRescue, a consortium backed by the German government, which aims to halt extinctions, has performed the first successful embryo transfer in southern white rhinos, paving the way for the technique to be used for their rarer northern counterparts. In September 2023, scientists transferred two southern white rhino embryos into surrogates at the Ol Pejeta Conservancy in Kenya, resulting in a successful pregnancy. While commonly used in humans, horses, and cows, the method has never been used in rhinos before. The father and the pregnant mother died after contracting a rare, unrelated bacterial infection when the fetus was 70 days old, but the researchers said the pregnancy was proof that the technique can work. Thomas Hildebrandt, the BioRescue project head and a professor at the Leibniz Institute for Zoo and Wildlife Research, said the technique was key into saving the northern white rhino. "This little baby is proof of everything," he told The Guardian. "The sperm injection, the fertilization, the liquid nitrogen, the thawing. This was never done before for rhinos. All of it could have failed." For the process to have worked in rhinos represented a major breakthrough, he said. "In comparison, humans are simple. We are working with 2.5-ton mammal." By May or June this year, scientists plan to implant the first northern white rhino embryo. The northern rhino embryos were created using sperm gathered from two now dead males and eggs gathered from Fatu. They will be carried by a southern white rhino surrogate in Kenya. Just 30 embryos remain, stored in liquid nitrogen at negative 196 Celsius in Berlin, Germany, and Cremona, Italy. Wow, that's very, very cold. Yeah, I think it's a really kind of funny scenario here that the men are dead, but hey, their sperm isn't, because everyone knows you only need one, and you can get 1,000, 1,000,000 probably from a rhino, 1,000,000,000,000 from a rhino. Famously, spiders put it all in and they get eaten. So, and then the female just goes, you know what, I feel like having children, and they just use they have a little sack of sperm in their body that they just go, another eggs, don't need a man, I already have collected enough. So it's really interesting. They're kind of using that strategy that a lot of insects use, for example.
Genetic
yeah. The surrogate rhino is injected with the embryo through its anus. That's not where babies are born. Wait a minute. If the 16-month pregnancy is successful, it would be the first northern white rhino born since 2000. It could also pave the way for conservation of the Sumatran rhino, which number about 40 in the wild. Wait, I'm confused. Why would you know what? I don't know anything about in vitro fertilization, so maybe it figures itself out. I don't know why you would insert it in the anus.
They got to go in through the poop hole. I've watched them do it on cows.
Yeah, but female animals have another hole, so I just really confused why they just don't put it in that one. Maybe it's too hard.
We'll ask the animal husbandry folks.
Yeah, maybe it's too hard to get it through the cervix. I don't know. I don't know anything about rhino cervixes, so I guess we'll leave it there.
Watch a video, maybe. There you go.
I'll watch a video on how the hell
animal husbandry.
Why they're putting it through there instead of into the place where babies come out of. I don't know.
I asked my mom when I was 5. Why is he going in through the poop hole, Mom? Anyway.
I'll go look it up later. Researchers said they would perform more embryo transfers if the first pregnancy seemed to be going well, meaning that as many as 6 northern white rhino calves could be born in a short period. Scientists said it would be important for the calves to meet Fatu and Najin while the pair were still alive to learn how to behave like normal white rhinos. Even in several northern white rhino calves are born, however, they will not be genetically diverse enough to produce a viable population, Hildebrandt said. The 30 surviving northern rhinos' embryos are all based on eggs from Fatu and sperm from 2 males. If more mammals are born, researchers said they would seek to use gene editing to improve genetic diversity in future offspring, and also taking genetic material from museum samples. That's a great idea. We go to skulls and find genetic materials, Hildebrandt said. Then we would use gene editing to put them into the population. We plan to go to all museums with northern white rhino specimens. It's not just a scientific experiment. We really want to bring them back. Last year it was announced that the southern white rhino population increased for the first time in 2012, rising from 15,942 at the end of 2021 to 16,803, but concerns remain about their long-term survival. Erastus Kanga, the Director General of Kenya Wildlife Service, said they were thrilled with the breakthrough and saved the subspecies. Kenya Wildlife Service is delighted to have been part of this journey for the last 13 years, since the northern white rhino were brought into Kenya in 2009, and for being part of the great initiative for Biorescue Consortium over the last 4 years, he said. This is a great milestone in the preservation of the northern white rhino genetic lineage. Justin Heath, the CEO of Old Pejita Conservancy, said it was a huge breakthrough for conservationists, but was bittersweet after losing the surrogate and bull to the bacterial infection. To have had the world's first pregnancy in a rhino after successful surrogate transfer on Old Pejita Conservancy is a point of great pride for us all, he said. We look forward to welcoming future surrogates, rhino calves under the foothills of Mount Kenya very soon. So, there you go. Good news coming out of Kenya. More white rhinos, and hopefully we stop, killing elephants and rhinos for bone, basically. But we'll see what happens with that. Your story.
And that's a serious story.
Yeah.
That's a serious story, but it made me think of Ace Ventura.
Yep.
Where he gets lodged in the rhino's poop hole. And animals, have you ever heard this geneticist joke? You want to hear a geneticist joke? They tried crossing a rhino with an elephant. You know what they got?
What?
Hell if I know. Next story.
Speaking
That's
of hell.
Old joke. Hell if I know. Anyway. The hell chicken. This is from theconversation.com. And newly identified hell chicken species suggests that dinosaurs weren't sliding towards extinction before the fateful asteroid hit. So from nearly extinct species to long extinct species.
Yep.
This is from... The author didn't put a name on the end or the beginning or anything, so we're just going to read it. Oh, no, the authors have pictures. That's why it was so big I didn't see it. Kyle Atkins Weltman, PhD, and Eric Snively, Associate Professor of Anatomy and Cell Biology at Oklahoma State University, wrote this article. Scholarly article, by the way. It's not just some reporter going, yakety yakety. Were dinosaurs already on their way out when an asteroid hit Earth 66 million years ago, ending the Cretaceous, the geologic period that started about 145 million years ago? It's a question that has vexed paleontologists like us for more than 40 years. In the late 1970s, debate began about whether dinosaurs were at their peak or in decline before the big extinction. Scientists at that time noted that while dinosaur diversity seemed to have increased in the geologic stage that spanned... Man, I'm having trouble with words. It's my eyes.
I have trouble with words every day.
Yeah, I'm just saying it. The white background, the letters are bouncing around on me. The geologic stage that spanned 83.6 million years to 71.2 million years ago, the number of species on the scene seemed to be decreased during the last few million years of the Cretaceous. Some researchers have interpreted this pattern to mean that the asteroid that struck the Gulf of Mexico was simply the final blow for an already vulnerable group of animals. However, others have argued that what looks like a decrease in the diversity of dinosaurs may be an artifact of how hard it is to accurately count them. Fossil formations might preserve different dinosaurs for more or less, often based on factors like their favorite environment and how easily their bodies fossilized there. The accessibility of various outcrops could influence what kinds of fossil researchers have. The accessibility of various outcrops could influence what kinds of fossil researchers have so far found. These biases are a problem because fossils are what paleontologists must rely on to conclusively answer how healthy dinosaurs' populations were when the asteroid hit. At the crucial moment, what was really happening to dinosaur diversity? Discovery, identification, and description of new dinosaurs provide vital clues. That's where our work comes in. Close examination of what we thought was a juvenile specimen of already known species of dinosaur from this time period revealed that it was actually part of an adult from a completely new species. Our work focusing on the life stage of our specimen demonstrates that dinosaur diversity may not have been declining before the asteroid hit, but rather that there are more species from this time period yet to be discovered, potentially even though reclassification of fossils already in museum collections. Our new study focused on 4 head limb bones, a femur, a tibia, and 2 metatarsals. They were unearthed in South Dakota in the rocks of Hell Creek Formation and date to the final 2 million years of the Cretaceous. When we first examined the bones, we identified them as belonging to a family of dinosaurs known as the Caenagnathids, a group of bird-like dinosaurs that had toothless beaks, long legs, and short tails. Direct fossil and inferred evidence indicates that these dinosaurs were covered in complex feathers and much like modern birds. The only known species of Caenagnatid from this time and region was Anzu, sometimes called the chicken from hell. Covered with feathers and spouting wings and toothless beak, Anzu was between roughly 450 and 750 pounds. Big chicken. Despite its fearsome nickname, though, its diet is a matter of debate. It was likely an omnivore, eating both plant and small animals. Because our specimen was significantly smaller than Anzu, we simply assumed it was a juvenile. We chalked up the anatomical differences we noticed the juvenile status and smaller size and figured the animal would have changed had it continued to grow. Anzu specimens are rare, and no definitive juveniles have been published in the scientific literature. So we were excited to potentially learn more about how it grew and changed throughout its lifetime by looking inside its bones. Just like with the tree's rings, bone records rings called lines of arrested growth. Bone records rings called lines of arrested growth. Each annual line represents part of a year when the animal's growth slowed. They would tell us how old this animal was and how fast or slow it was growing. We cut through the middle of 3 bones so we could microscopically examine the internal anatomy or cross sections, but we saw completely uprooted our initial assumptions. In the juvenile, we would expect lines of arrested growth in the bone to be widely spaced, including rapid growth, with even spacing between the lines from inside and outside the surface of the bones. Here we saw the latter lines were spaced progressively closer together, indicate the animal's growth had slowed and it was nearly an adult. There was no juvenile. Instead, it was an adult of an entirely new species, which we dubbed, oh boy, Ionophron infernalis. The name means Pharaoh's chicken from hell. We referenced the nickname from its larger cousin, Anzu, which is, of course, Hell's Chicken. I guess it's a play in Hell's Kitchen, huh?
Yeah,
Traits unique to his species, including ankle bones fused to the tibia and well-developed ridge on one of its foot bones. These weren't features of a young Anzu who would outgrow, but rather unique aspects of the smaller Ionophron, expanding, and this expands the Canognathed family tree. I shouldn't try that word again. With this evidence, we started making thorough comparisons with other members of the family to determine where the Ionophron infernalis fit within the group. It also inspired us to re-examine other bones previously believed to be Anzu, as we now knew that more Canognathed dinosaurs lived in western North America during that time. One specimen, a partial foot bone smaller than our own new specimen, appeared distinct from both Anzu and Ionophron, or however you say it. Where once there was one chicken from hell, now there were 2, and evidence for a third, a large Anzu weighing as much as a grizzly bear, one medium, human-like in weight, and one small, yet unnamed, close in size to a German shepherd.
Wow.
Comparing Hell Creek with other fossil formations, such as the famous dinosaur park formations of Alberta, that preserves dinosaurs that lived between 76.5 million and 74.4 million years ago, we find not only the same number of, Canognathed species, but also the same size classes. There we have Canognathes, comparable to Anzu, Chirostonotes, comparable to Ionophron, and Cytipes, comparable to third species we found evidence for. These parallels in both species, count and relative size, offer compelling evidence that Canognathids remain stable throughout the last part of the Cretaceous. Our new discovery suggests that dinosaur group was not declining in diversity at the end of the Cretaceous. These fossils show there are still new species to be discovered and support the idea at least part of the pattern of decreasing diversity is a result of sampling and preservation biases. Did large dinosaurs go extinct the way a Hemingway character quipped he went broke? Gradually, then suddenly? Well, well, there are plenty of questions still outstanding in this extinction debate. Ionophron adds evidence that the Canognathids were doing quite well for themselves before the asteroid ruined everything. They were having a big old dinosaur party, and then it was over. Back to you on your quest for, did you get the video and look at it?
Yeah.
Okay, so good.
My
it was
quest.
8 minutes. I didn't want to sit there and hurt. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, and we have one more story just in case we had to string this out. Sorry. I was not sending it back to you immediately because I have one more story because we have a death. The man, Arno Penzias, post-discovered a Big Bang's afterglow, dies at the age of 90.
Okay.
Physicist Arno Penzias, who discovered, well, this is how life began. We're going back prehistoric, or even going back farther. That was going to be my segue. In the 1960s, Penzias and colleague Robert Woodrow Wilson were working at Bell Labs in Holmdel, New Jersey on a new type of microwave antenna shaped like a giant horn. They planned to use the ultra-sensitive system to study radio emissions from the Milky Way. What they eventually found instead was a signal that originated from outside our galaxy that turned out to be the smoking gun proof of the Big Bang Theory. While there was an eventual eureka moment, it didn't come quickly. While testing a receiver, Penzias and Wilson picked up the unexplained hiss in the microwave portion of the spectrum. At first, the pair thought the interference could be coming from New York City, just north of the antenna, or perhaps an echo from a nuclear bomb test conducted years earlier in the Pacific Ocean. But the signal seemed to be emanating from every part of the sky, which seemed to preclude those possibilities. Another guess was that the interference might be coming from a pair of pigeons nesting near the antenna horn, or more precisely, from their poop. More poop stories. After cleaning out what was Penzias euphemistically described as a layer of white, sticky dielectric substance coating the inside of the antenna, the results were the same. Nope, it wasn't caused by chicken poop, or pigeon poop, or any kind of poop. The interference persisted. We were looking for anything in the instrument or the environment that might be causing the excess antenna noise, Wilson was quoted by Smithsonian Magazine, saying in 2014. Among other things, we searched for radiation from walls of the antenna, especially the throat, which is a small end of the horn. We constructed a whole new throat section and tested the instrument with it. Eventually, Penzias and Wilson concluded that they had stumbled upon something hypothesized some 15 years earlier by three physicists led by George Gamow. Gamow and his colleagues built on the work of Edwin Hubble, who had shown in 1929 that the universe was expanding. They argued that reversing the clock meant that there was a beginning to the universe, and that billions of years later, we ought to still be able to see and hear what remained from a time that just after the initial bang. Penzias had learned from Princeton professor Robert Dick, with an E at the end, I don't know if it's Dick or Dickey, had predicted that this afternoon from Big Bang would be found throughout the universe as a sort of background radiation. That was what Penzias surmised, and he and Wilson had found. About publishing their findings, Penzias and Wilson settled a scientific dispute that had been raging for years. Despite Hubble's discovery of the expanding universe, there were still prominent doubters such as British astronomer Fred Hoyle, who favored an alternative known as the steady state module, which is absurd. I don't think that the universe can possibly be steady. With the discovery of cosmic background, the steady state was all but dead. Nobel Prize in 1978, Penzias and Wilson were awarded the Nobel Prize for Physics, or what the Nobel website described as their fortuitous discovery of a form of radio noise that bathes the cosmos. The discovery, it said, provided a crucial piece of evidence for how the universe was created. Penzias, who was Jewish, was born in Germany in 1933, just as the Nazis were coming to power. His family fled 6 years later. In late springs of 1939, shortly after my 6th birthday, my parents put their 2 boys on a train for England, and we each had a suitcase with our initials painted on it, as well as a bag of candy.
Nice.
He recalled in a 2005 Nobel laureate bio. They told me to be just sure to take care of my younger brother. I remember telling him, "Jetzt sind wir alien. Now we are alone," as the train pulled out. His mother and father joined them in England, and the family eventually settled in the Bronx. Penzias later attended City College in New York. He planned to become an engineer, but a professor dangled the idea of physics. He said, "Physicists think they can do anything an engineer can do." Penzias recalled to NPR in 2015, so he decided to give it a try. He later spent 2 years in the U.S. Army Signal Corps as a radar officer before going into graduate school in Columbia University, eventually earning a doctorate of physics in 1961. I'm sure he learned everything he knows about antenna in the Army, right?
Okay.
Army. Oh, he's a radar officer. He was working on radars. Penzias, it was then that he joined Bell Labs. Penzias later rose to the ranks of the premier research facility, spending 4 decades in the company. Toward the end of his career, he talked himself into a job in Silicon Valley, where he vetted technology startups for his employer. I hit upon the idea of turning what I had been enjoying most of into a full-time job, helping shape new ideas and bringing them to practical fruition. Penzias said in a 2005 Nobel laureate bio. "The more I thought about it, the more attractive this plan for my post-retirement life became," he said. "The achievement of Penzias and Wilson fundamentally changed the way we view our universe." And this is written, of course, by... Do we name the authors? Yes, the author for this is a man named Charles Bennett, an astronomer at Johns Hopkins University.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, no, he didn't write it.
Oh, he didn't write it.
Charles Bennett, an astronomer at Johns Hopkins University, is one of hundreds of scientists still studying the cosmic microwave background, mostly space-based instruments such as Wilkinson microwave, anisotropy probe, which is WMAP, and previously COBE, the Cosmic Background Explorer. Speaking to NPR in 2014, Bennett said, Penzias and Wilson rocked my world. Okay, that sounds a little personal.
Wow.
Okay. There's your story by Scott Newman of NPR.
Okay.
And back to you. And hopefully I get plenty of time now.
Yeah, I didn't need that extra time, but thank you. All right, next.
Okay. All right.
Next story. Oh, here we go. Right one. There we go.
Right.
Is about our culture segment. That's right. UK museums are loaning their looted artifacts. Wow, thanks. You should just You should just keep them. When they say, "Hey, can we have those artifacts back?" They can just say no. Arrest us. Arrest the entire country of Ghana. This is by David Marquand on Euronews Culture. Two of the UK's leading national museums are set to loan back a selection of artifacts taken from Ghana over 100 years ago. The Victoria and Albert Museum, V&A, and the British Museum have signed a loan agreement to return 32 items of royal regalia. Most of the pieces will be seen in Ghana for the first time in 150 years. The V&A will lend 17 items, while the British Museum will send 15 pieces under the 3-year loan deals, with an option to extend for the same amount of time, the BBC has reported. The items were taken during wars in the 19th century between the UK and the Asante, including ceremonial cap decorated with gold ornaments and a sword of state, gold badges worn by officials, and a gold peace pipe. Wow, they stole a gold peace pipe. That's crazy. The irony. A joint statement by the BM and V&A acknowledges that the objects seized had cultural, historical, and spiritual significance to the Asante people. The seizures are also indelibly linked to British colonial history in West Africa. But you're still not getting them back. The Ghana loan deal was agreed with Otumfo Osei Tutu, the current Asante king, known as the Asantehene. The items will reportedly go on display at the Manhia Palace Museum in Kumasi, the capital of the Asante region, to celebrate the Asantehene's silver jubilee. Tristram Hunt, director at the V&A, said the gold items taken from the court of the Asante king are the equivalent of our crown jewels, except that British crown jewels are also stolen. Hunt... Like, oh, I found this shiny rock. Let me give it to the queen. That's my shiny rock. Not anymore. Hunt also said that when museums hold objects with origins in war and looting in military campaigns, we have a responsibility to the country's origins to think about how we can share those more fairly today. How about just giving them back? If they get stolen in the country they belong to, that's their problem. Stop having this weird white savior complex where you're like, we have to protect all of the cultures and only us can do it. Only us British people know how to protect museum goods. You guys don't know anything about museums. The issue is some national museums in the UK, including the V&A and the British Museum, are banned by law from de-accessionizing items in their collections, i.e. permanently giving back contested items in their collections. Why? Who the fuck passed that law? Some asshole, probably. Loan deals like historic deal with Ghana are seen as a way to allow objects to return to their countries of origin. However, a recurring argument is that loans imply the UK's ownership of disputed artifacts. Hunt is advocating a change in the law and has stated that he would like to see more freedom for museums, but then a kind of backstop, a committee where you would have to appeal if we wanted to reinstitute items. Some see any change in the regard as a direct threat to British museums, and a fear that these institutions would lose some of their prized items. Okay, then get some of your own. Still, while the Ghana loan has been largely applauded, there is still a long way to go, as many countries continue to seek the reparations of their treasures, and the UK face long-running reparation disputes. The issue of the Parthenon marbles is one of the most publicized examples. Greece has long demanded the return of the 2,500-year-old frieze that was taken from Athens in the early 19th century by British diplomat Lord Elgin. The classical scriptures are displayed in the British Museum. Last year, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak escalated his war of words with the leader of Greece, accusing Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis, I haven't said his name in a while, of trying to grandstand over the disputed Parthenon marbles. Mitsotakis, meanwhile, said that the dispute had helped draw international attention to Greece's long-standing claim to the artifacts. Athens wants them to return so they can be displayed alongside the rest of the Parthenon sculptures at a proposed built museum in Athens. British Museum's Chair of Trustees, George Osborne, recently said that he was looking for a practical, and rational way forward. Giving it back sounds like the rational thing to me. I don't understand this. Like, people are just like, my pride is that the British Museum has stolen artifacts. Well, that's a weird thing to be proud of. Yeah. I think the British Museum needs to get over themselves. The people who love the British Museum need to go over themselves. And if it's the British Museum, shouldn't there be British things in it? I just don't understand the idea of having Egyptian, Greek, Ghanaian artifacts there and being like, yes, this celebrates the UK and our conquering of other people and stealing their stuff, I guess. Sorry, what were you trying to say?
The history of conquest. That's what we're demonstrating. We took their shit. That's what war is, organized stealing anyway.
But yeah, that's the end of my story.
Oh, okay. Well, the museum director in England is like, if they don't get their stuff back, here comes a dad joke. If they don't get their stuff back, instead of being in Ghana, it's going to be Ghana. Where's our stuff? It's Ghana. Oh, I thought it was in Ghana. Never mind. Didn't work. Is it my story?
Yep.
Is it this day in history?
Yep.
All right, this day in history. On this day in 844, Roman archdeacon named John was elected anti-pope against the nobility's candidate, Pope Sergius II. Anti-pope. They had an anti-pope.
Yeah, I think it means something
sounds
different
like something
in Italian.
You take. This sounds like something a doctor gives you. Well, I've got Pope. Well, here's the anti-pope. It looks like antidote. I'm sorry. 1533 in this day, Henry VIII, King of England, married his second wife, Anne Boleyn, in a secret ceremony. Speaking of shit that the Catholic Church didn't approve of. And basically, Henry VIII immediately went out and started his own religion called the Anglican Church. He started the Church of England, and then, of course, they appointed their own bishops and so forth and so on. They have to this day. In 1554, Jesuit missionaries founded the city of Sao Paulo, now in Brazil. Well, it was always in Brazil. We just called it Brazil now. On the anniversary of the conversion of St. Paul. Okay. In 1759, Robert Burns, national poet of Scotland, was born in Alloway in Ayrshire. Robert Burns. 1874, in this day, English author W. Somerset Maugham, best known for the novels of Human Bondage, The Moon and Sixpence, Cakes and Ale, and The Razor's Edge, was born.
Wow.
So the movie The Razor's Edge. 1882, British writer Virginia Woolf, who made an original contribution in the form of novel and was one of the most distinguished critics of her time, was born in London. 1945, in an effort to prevent tooth decay, Grand Rapids, Michigan became the first U.S. city to add fluoride to its water system. 1949, the first Emmy Awards were presented. There was only 6 categories, and nominated shows were limited to those that aired in the Los Angeles area.
Wow.
So it was, 1949. There wasn't a big,
wasn't a lot TV of TV scene.
It was a big black and white tube where everybody looked like they were 40 pounds overweight, and their heads looked like cone heads. 1961, the animated film 101 Dalmatians released in the United States, and it became a Disney classic, especially noted for the villainous character Cruella de Vil.
Cruella de Vil.
In 1970,
Cruella de Vil.
oh yeah, 101 Dalmatians. 1971, American criminal and cult leader Charles Manson and 3 of his followers are convicted of a series of notorious murders, and their crimes inspired the best-selling book Helter Skelter, which we're plugging a book for somebody on this for I'm not sure why. 2005, American architect Philip C. Johnson, who wielded great influence in American architectural design, playing a defining role in several 20th century movements, died in Connecticut on this day in 2005. Also passing away on this day in 2017, Mary Tyler Moore. American actress Mary Tyler Moore helped redefine portrayal of women on TV with the roles in the comedies Dick Van Dyke Show and the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Died in Greenwich, Connecticut on this day in 2017. Our featured event, 41 CE, as we covered yesterday, Caligula was murdered. Well, on this day, 41 CE, Claudius I, who extended Roman rule in North Africa and British province and made Britain a province of the Roman Empire, was affirmed as empire, raised to the post one day after the murder of his nephew, Gaius Caesar, who was also known as Caligula. Our feature biography is Corazon Aquino. Born January 25th, 1933, she was the president of the Philippines. She died August 1st, 2009, in Makati, Philippines. Corazon Aquino, first woman president of the Philippines. I'm not sure who she was. She might not have been the first woman president, but she was a woman and she was the president of the Philippines. It doesn't say she was the first, so I don't want to get that. I don't want to get that wrong. Also, the birthday of Etta James, born in 1938, American singer. Belts out of tune. Well, used to belt out of tune. 1980, Zabi, a Spanish athlete, was born. In 1981, Alicia Keys was born on this day. And what else is this day besides National Opposite Day? It's National Florida Day. And that's very fitting because Florida is not quite like the rest of the country. Just a little strange down there. National Irish Coffee Day. So get drunk and do the opposite of what everybody tells you to do. That's it. There's only those 3 days.
Get drunk into the opposite.
National Opposite Day. Wear your shirt inside out. Wear your pants backwards. Whatever you can do. Light turns green. Light turns green. Hit the brakes. Light turns red. Floor it.
Oh my God.
Go for it.
Please do not do that. On today, which is
yellow is anything at yellow. Stop in the intersection, go in reverse, whatever, man. Hell, drive in reverse. There you go. Anyway, it's National Opposite Day, January 25th, 2024 on Before Coffee.
All right, this has been Allison here from the Netherlands. We just got our local store just got a huge renovation, and now it looks like a city store instead of like a cute little county shop. So that's something new happening in my life, and I won't see you tomorrow
cool.
Because I don't want to see you. No? I'm being opposite right now. Don't show up for Friday's news dump, even though today was more of a news dump than Friday. We're already past an hour of filming, and we'll see you tomorrow. Here is your mic drop moment.
May I call you Patch?
Please do. Go.
Oh, I'd be delighted.
Don't make any difference.
Do you prefer Mr. Adams?
No, Patch is just
all right.
fine.
Well, that'd be very nice.
Yeah,
it's exciting.
And the folks, of course, know the show, and you're you've had shows before, though. You had the MTV show. Now, wait a minute. No, it's a good thing.
It is. As a matter of fact, you did me one of the greatest favors I've had in my career. On our last show, after we were canceled, you came by as the final guest.
That's right.
Very nice thing.
It was a lot of fun. I appreciate you asking me, by the way.
But I'm already penciling you in for when I get canceled again. I really think that'd be very nice.
It's not going to happen.
Not this time, sucker.
Are you excited about it?
I am excited. You know, it's back getting into the grind of it. I'm not accustomed to that a little bit, and I've been off doing some other things. But
been making a lot of movies.
Oh, my filmography is enormous.
No, but you've done a lot. You've made a lot in a very brief time.
You're
in the faculty.
2.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels: Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.